I'm going to talk about my experience with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, um, and intrusive thoughts. If you don't know, OCD is, like I said, obsessive compulsive disorder is characterized by repeated compulsions, mentally and physically, obsessions with ritualistic activity. But one of the worst features of OCD is intrusive thoughts. And basically, imagine you're walking down a road and you see a car, and sometimes you get those thoughts of, oh, what if I just jumped in front of that car? When people get those thoughts, usually they can just go, oh, that's fucking stupid, whatever, who cares? But a person with OCD, that thought will stick with them because we add so much purpose to those thoughts that they almost become real. And when they become real to us, it almost seems like a possibility. Intrusive thoughts can range from things like murder or rape or paedophilia or suicide. And your brain tries to almost, well, not the brain, the OCD almost tries to trick your brain into thinking that you are those things. And alongside that, it gives you a sort of this idea that you are going to do those things, even though a person with OCD who has a specific intrusive thought, that intrusive thought is literally the opposite of what they want to do. And suffering with the themes is fucking awful. I made the analogy before. It's like trying to deal with intrusive thoughts with compulsions is kind of like trying to build a house in the middle of a hurricane. At the end of the day, it's pointless because it's going to rip all the boards away, but at the same time, you try to do it because you think it will help. This isn't really a video on any treatments. I've tried so many treatments, but it's more kind of an overview of the condition. There can also be physical compulsions where you may close the door and press down the handle a certain amount of times, or make sure the fridge is shut, constantly checking your bag. And the reason for this is because we want to do things like that until they feel right. And when people look at people with OCD, they might think, oh, well, that's stupid. Why are you doing that? Because you already know that it's locked, or you know that you put that thing down in that certain place. But it's like a worm that goes into your head, and it's like constantly going around and around and around and thinking, is it? Did I lock it? Did I lock it properly? Am I absolutely sure that that thing is where I put it? Are you absolutely sure? And somehow these ideas coincide with compulsions. So obsessive compulsive, where you have an obsession and you think that if you do these compulsions, they'll go away. And they don't, because the paradox is that you try to do it to help, but ultimately it just ends up reinforcing it. And OCD is something that I've struggled with for most of my life. I don't know where it came from. Apparently, it's to do with biological and genetic factors, as well as having possibly a predisposition to have it, whether the other family members have had it, or whether it's something that develops in genealogy. But the way it's portrayed in the media, like, oh, I'm so OCD, is completely, the way it's represented in the media is completely wrong, because not everyone is Howard Hughes level, but also at the same time, people who like having their pencil case at a certain point on the desk and saying I'm so OCD is a definite massive misrepresentation of it, because Um, it's just, there's so many more factors to it. And I feel like it's really important that people understand that when a person with OCD, such as myself, says about these horrific images that play, like a nightmare movie that you can't leave, it's really important to understand that the thoughts aren't wanted. And that's one of the most important things about OCD. And that's why people with OCD feel so much shame, so much guilt, so much remorse, because it's almost like a judge in your head that's tricking you in a case to thinking that you are responsible for things that you aren't, and for other things like that. Um, the reason OCD thoughts and themes are so distressing is because they're so personal, and it can also get into kind of, well, it can be to do with family members, it could be to do with random people walking down the street. And there are therapies out there, but in trying to deal with it yourself, it is extremely difficult. It is very difficult. It's something that I struggle with every day, and do things like artwork and music and things like that to deal with it. But um, yeah, what I would suggest is that if you are suffering from symptoms of obsessive compulsive disorder, it's a really good idea to talk to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a really good friend. Basically, someone who's not going to judge you, because these thoughts are not your fault. Um, these thoughts are terrible. These thoughts will ruminate in your head, but again, it's not your fault. It's not my fault for having them. But the problem is, because we feel so much anxiety about them, that's why they become stronger, is because we add meaning to them. But yeah, this has just been a video kind of explaining about OCD and what it truly is. Um, how it's misrepresented, because OCD is a terrible, debilitating disorder. And like I say, I've lived with it now for years, and it's pretty hard to understand, let alone trying to talk to someone about it. But there are communities out there, there are psychiatrists, psychologists, and certain therapies that can help. For example, ERP, I think it's called, some type of exposure therapy. There's cognitive behavioral therapy. There are also certain antidepressants that can help. But again, all these things by themselves aren't going to be something that will ultimately get rid of it for good. Um, so yeah, I've just wanted to make this because I felt like maybe talking to a camera would um, help me to kind of express it other than I do creatively. And yeah, if you are suffering with OCD, just know that there are people out there that can help. There are communities on Facebook, on, I imagine, Twitter, so many social medias. But yeah, so I hope this video has been helpful in trying to describe a little bit more in depth of what OCD is. I'm not a professional, I'm just someone who suffers with it. And so yeah, I hope that this has been a type of introduction into what OCD thoughts are. And again, these thoughts are not wanting, they're not wanting thoughts. They are thoughts that you get which are the complete opposite of what you want. A person with OCD isn't evil. A person with OCD is not going to kill you. They're not going to hurt anyone sexually. But these thoughts arise because it's the brain overstimulating anxiety in different parts of the brain, and they connect in a way that I think produces more um, awareness from the lizard brain that we have, the basic survival instincts. So in a way, it's almost like our brain trying to help us, but it's over helping us, which means it isn't helping us. So yeah, hopefully you've well, I don't know if you've enjoyed this video or not, but I hope in a certain way it's helped. Thank you.